Hope you're well. I thought it would be fun to kind of make a little sit down video today talking about all of the books that I personally would love to read and the reasons why I will never actually pick them up. Because one, I've never really seen a video like this, and then I was just like wondering, like, do other people also like have this where there are books that they want to read but they just probably will never pick them up for whatever the reason might be? So I thought, why not make my own video talking about the books I'll never read and why, just to see if it's like a thing. You know, I split them up into categories, and then for each category I try to put at least 3 books. This is not an exhaustive list. There are probably a lot of books that I've already forgotten about, and there's probably a lot of books that would be added to this list had I known about them, but I don't know about them yet. So let's just get into it. The first category is the trigger warning. So essentially there is something about this book that would be mentally damaging for me to read in the trigger warnings and content warnings. So that's why, even though it's a book that I think I would like, or it's a book that has intrigued me because of either like plot or the hype around it or whatever, it's just something that I personally like don't think would be mentally safe for me to read. The first series that I have on here is actually the Binding 13 series by Chloe Walsh. I've heard so many people talk about this, and everyone says that the book is kind of life-changing, but I've just gone through and there's a lot of trigger warnings that personally just put me off a lot, and it's like I don't want to read about that stuff. The next one is Beartown by Frederick. Backman. I've heard so many good things about this, and I really do want to read it because it sounds like one of those books that everybody loves once they pick it up, but once again, the trigger warnings are just too much for me. And then finally, and this is the one that I'm the saddest about, to be very honest with you, is actually the Heartstopper series by Alice Osman. I wanted to read this so badly, and I watched both of the seasons that's on Netflix, and I really loved it. It was so cute. I love Nick and Charlie, and I really want to read the series. Like, I yearn to, but once again, like, there's a lot of triggers involved with this series, and it's just stuff that I don't want to read about, that I'm not like equipped to read about. But I'm very sad because I watched the show and they're just so cute, and I fell in love with it, and I was so excited to read it. And then I went in depth. I even did research, like seeing how bad is it, how's it handled, and I ended up deciding that it's not a series for me, but I'm very upset about it. So the next section is I grew out of the genre. If I had read these books at a different point in my life when I was younger, specifically probably in like my Wattpad phase of life, I think I would have loved these books a lot. But because I've just like outgrown that genre and that style of writing, I wouldn't pick it up because I know it would just not work for me where I am now. And the first section that I have is actually 2 series. It's the Off Campus and then Brair You series by Elle Kennedy. And honestly, just throw Elle Kennedy in there in general. Sometimes I'll pick up her books if I'm really feeling like I just kind of need like a Wattpad-esque book, because sometimes that does happen. But in general, like every time I've read or listened to one of her books, it was just kind of like, I get the appeal. I could have seen myself loving this if I had read it back in my early to mid-teens without the spice, but it's just for where I am right now in life, it's just not something that I enjoy anymore. Same thing with Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I think if I'd read this when I was a young teen, I really would have loved this, but it just reads too young for me now. I've tried to read it twice, and I've DNF'd book 1 twice, and maybe I'll try a 3rd time, but I just don't see it happening. I don't ever see myself reading this series, and it's really a shame because I've heard so many good things and everyone loves it, but it's just not for me. The next one is the Iron King series by Julie Kagawa, and this is another one that I DNF'd. I DNF'd book 1. I really wanted to like it because it sounded so interesting, and it's just one of those series that I want to like, but again, when I was reading it, like, just didn't click with me. It really felt like something I would have enjoyed at 13 had I read it then, but I didn't. So it's very unfortunate, especially this one, because I did this stupid thing and I bought the whole series before I'd even tried reading book 1, and I shouldn't have done that. That was the series that taught me my lesson of stop buying series as a whole. And then last but not least, even though I've never read her work, Lucy Score kind of just seems to fit into this category as well. I think if I'd read it closer to the beginning of my reading journey, I would have enjoyed her more, but I think at this point it's just not for me anymore, which is a shame because like I hear good things, so I am intrigued, but I just don't think I'll ever actually pick them up. The next category is just like the author. So sometimes it's an author's specific writing style. Sometimes I may just not have liked their previous book, but it was just something about the author that doesn't click with me, and therefore I probably won't pick their work up even though I want to. Lauren Asher is one of those authors for me. I read The Fine Print and I DNF'd Love Redesigned. Her books definitely do intrigue me, but they're just her writing style, and I just like don't click, and like the things that she writes about, just it's not for me, even though I get very curious every time someone talks about her books, and I want to love them as much as everyone else, but I've tried twice and it's not a thing for me. Next is The Inadequate Heir by Danielle Elle Jensen. I read the first 2 books in the Bridge Kingdom series and it was really fun. The vibes were immaculate, but in general, like I just felt really no connection to the story beyond just, oh, the vibes are fun and it's good for summertime. But like, I didn't really feel a connection to the way that she writes at all. And it's not like a bad writing style, but for me personally, it just felt kind of flat. The next one, you can see my Nightshade reading vlog if you want me to go in depth, but I will not be reading Skyshade by Alex Aster, which is disappointing because I want to know how that series ends, but go watch that video. It's a whole rant. I cannot support Alex Aster after Nightshade. And then finally, I have Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert. I do want to give this book a shot, but I'm very hesitant to pick it up, which is why I put it on this list, because Melissa Albert wrote The Hazelwood, and I was really, really excited to read that one, and I ended up DNFing it because I listened to the audiobook and I was just checked out the entire time. It felt like nothing was happening, and it just, like, my ears would literally close rather than listen to it, and I don't think that it's a bad story at all. To me, it just felt very, very flat, and for that reason I'm very hesitant to pick up her other work because I think it's a writing style issue. The next main reason why I wouldn't pick up a book even though I want to is because of either like a genre or a trope, and it's just like, it sounds interesting, but it's a genre or there is a trope that I just tend to dislike and never enjoy regardless of how interesting the actual story sounds. So I picked a book for each trope or genre. The first one is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonam-Young, and this is because of the pregnancy trope. I've heard a lot of good things about it and it has intrigued me quite a bit because of the praise that this book has gotten. But in general, like I don't like reading books about pregnancy. Pregnancy is something that scares me quite a lot, and reading about it makes me feel very anxious. The next one is The Nightingale by Kristin Hanna. This one again has received so much praise, and honestly her work in general, and that's mostly due to the genre. Specifically, The Nightingale is a historical fiction, and I only ever really do historical when it's in fantasy. I would like to try and force myself to try and get out of that fear, but in general, I don't really enjoy historical fictions that much. They don't intrigue me that much, and it's nothing because of like the authors or the stories or anything. For some reason, I have a disconnection with that. Next, we have The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Again, very well loved book. I'm very, very intrigued by it. However, it's a time travel trope, and I don't like time travel, and I also don't like time loops, which leads me into the next book, which is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I don't do time loops. They are way too repetitive. It's the same day, the same conversations over and over and over and over and over again. And I understand that that is the whole point of the time loop, but I hate that. It drives me insane. I check out immediately. It's never been something that I've enjoyed in any media, books, TV shows, movie. Like, it's never been something that I like. It's always been something that I thought was just incredibly dull and boring. And then the next one is actually a series. It is the Locked Tomb series, which I think that's like the Gideon, the Ninth, and those books. And the reason for this one is because it is sci-fi. I've only ever read one sci-fi before, and that was Jurassic Park. Sci-fi is just a genre that, again, I feel no pull toward. It's one of those genres that for some reason, like, I'm sure there are a lot of interesting stories that I would love, but I'm never pulled enough to actually give them a shot. And then I've also heard the series is very confusing. Like, for 70% or more of the book, you have absolutely no idea what's going on, and then everything just clicks at the end. And I don't think I would enjoy being that confused for that long. So in general, like, that's why for me. Next, another reason why I'm very hesitant to pick up these books that I want to read is because of the length. Call me petty, but there are some books and some series that are just way too long, and it's very intimidating knowing that you want to pick something up that's going to take you possibly years to read if it's that big of a series. Cassandra Clare is one of the authors that fall into this. I really would love to read her work, but just like there are 25 books that you have to read in a specific order and everything interconnects, and it's too much. Another one is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I've heard a lot of good things, but it's so thick, and it's book one in a series, and the glossary is like 10 pages long, and that's just really intimidating, especially if you're not a seasoned fantasy reader, which I don't consider myself a seasoned fantasy reader. I read a lot of fantasy, but like epic fantasies I still kind of struggle with. Like Priory of the Orange Tree, I just didn't connect with that one, so that's kind of why this book is in there. Next is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I have yet to read Fourth Wing because of the size, and Iron Flame is double that. It's scary and a lot, and I'm petty. Any Mariana Zapata book falls into this category because I've heard she is the queen of slow burns, and I love slow burns, but I've said this once, I've said this twice, I've said this a million times. Romance books should never be more than 400 pages, probably 350. 400 is if there's like a very deep side plot. And I think her books are all over 400 pages, and that's too much for me. I really struggle with romance books that are that long every single time. The Fortuna Sworn series by KJ Sutton is something that I saw in the bookshop one day, and it really intrigued me. The covers are very pretty, but there are just so many books in that series. Same thing with the Blood Grace series by Vela Roth. The covers just like intrigue me so much, and they're vampire books, and I really want to read them, but there's 8 books in that series, and they're all 400 plus page books, so it's just like it's so much to dedicate yourself to. And then last but not least is the Chestnut Spring series. However, I did recently get Flawless, so I will be tackling this one. It's very intimidating. Most of these books I probably will never read because of their size, and it's very sad and very petty of me, and I probably shouldn't let size deter me like that. But even with movies, if it's over the standard 90 minutes, I really struggle to be able to commit to that, which is strange considering I have very willingly watched like 12-hour YouTube videos from Kit Boga. So the final reason is popularity. These are books that I want to read more so because they're so popular and everyone else loves them, but I don't think I would personally enjoy them. Kind of like the Six of Crows situation that I was in, where it was like, well, everyone loves them, so I would, even though I knew very deep down inside that that was just not a series for me, and I was right. So these are books like that, where it's like everyone else loves them, so I want to read them, but I just know very deep down that it's probably not going to be something that I enjoy. The first book in this section would be any V.E. Schwab book. I do not doubt that she is a fantastic author, but I just don't see myself enjoying her work. And for no particular reason, to be honest, it's just like, it's one of those books where you just look at them and it's like, not for me, you know? Next is the Magnolia Parks series by Jessa Hastings. I couldn't even finish Gossip Girl, so the fact that this is Gossip Girl but in the UK isn't really a selling point for me, but it also is because I did like Gossip Girl and then I got tired of it. Next is the Atlas series by Olivia Blake, and then finally is the Secret History by Donna Tartt. So all of these, as you can tell, very popular, very well loved. Most people tend to rate these books highly when they pick them up. But yeah, I want to read them because they're popular, but I really just don't think that I would enjoy them that much. That was almost every book, though. Every book that I could think of, at least. for this video. Let me know if you have any books that you want to read but you'll probably never pick up and why. If you like me or my videos, I would really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.